The crystal chambers of Terminus Prime reflected light from 3 distant suns. Inside the massive structure, representatives from 12 different alien species gathered around a circular table that floated in the center of the room. The air was thick with tension. War had come to the galaxy, and no one knew how to stop it. Ambassador Jiwoo stood near the viewing platform watching as ship after ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Aquarian fleet arrived first, their blue-hulled vessels moving in perfect formation. She counted 200 ships. The Syndrel came next with 150 angular warships. The Korthan brought their carriers. The Thessian Republic sent their battlecruisers. Every species that valued peace had sent their military might. Every species except humanity. Jiwoo wore a simple gray uniform with Earth's emblem on her shoulder. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes. She had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years. In that time, she had learned to ignore the whispers and sideways glances. Humans were new to the galactic stage. Many older species saw them as children playing at politics. The human representative stands alone, Overlord Krethix announced from across the chamber. His voice buzzed and clicked, translated by the Universal Communication System. The Valtrum leader was massive, his insectoid body covered in black armor plates. "Where is your mighty fleet, Ambassador? Or perhaps Earth has decided this conflict does not concern them." Laughter rippled through some of the alien delegations. Jiwoo did not react. She had expected this. "Earth is sending appropriate forces," she replied simply. "Appropriate forces?" Admiral Hae-jin of the Syndrel 4th Fleet leaned forward in her seat. Her scales shimmered purple in the filtered sunlight. "We face the Valtrum horde. They have conquered 6 systems in 3 months. They have destroyed colonies and enslaved populations. This requires more than appropriate forces. This requires everything we can muster." "I agree," Jiwoo said. "That is why I am confident in what Earth is sending." High Mediator Thessian, an ancient reptilian who had seen 1,000 years of galactic politics, studied the human ambassador with golden eyes. "When will your forces arrive?" Jiwoo checked her wrist display. 47 minutes. Overlord Krethix slammed one of his armored limbs against his section of the table. 47 minutes? And you have only just now informed us? How many ships is Earth sending? 50? 100? "Earth is sending what is needed," Jiwoo replied. The Valtrum Overlord turned to address the other council members. "You see, humanity speaks in riddles. They offer nothing concrete. They waste our time while my horde grows stronger. I propose we begin our assault without waiting for the humans. Let them catch up if they can." Several delegates voiced agreement. The Korthan representative, a being made of crystalline structures, spoke in chiming tones. "The human species has only had faster-than-light travel for 60 years. Perhaps they do not yet understand the scale of interstellar warfare. We should not hold this against them, but neither should we delay." Jiwoo felt the weight of their judgment but kept her expression neutral. She had been given very specific instructions from Earth Command. Say nothing about the Sovereign until it arrives. Let them see for themselves. "I ask for patience," she said. 47 minutes is not long to wait. "Time enough for the Valtrum to fortify another system," muttered the Aquarian commander. High Mediator Thessian raised one clawed hand for silence. "We will wait." The human species earned their council seat through demonstrated technological advancement and diplomatic good faith. We will extend the same courtesy to their military forces. His golden eyes fixed on Jiwoo. "However, Ambassador, if your forces prove insufficient, Earth will need to reconsider its role in this alliance." "Understood," Jiwoo said. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Some delegates reviewed tactical data on floating holographic displays. Others conversed in hushed tones. Jiwoo remained standing by the viewing platform, watching the assembled fleet maneuver into formation. It was an impressive sight. Over 700 warships from a dozen species all gathered to push back against aggression, and yet, she was not worried. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Overlord Krethix made several more comments about human unreliability. A few delegates began discussing contingency plans that did not include Earth forces. At minute 43, the long-range sensors detected something. A Sindrel tactical officer's voice came through the communication system. Contact at system edge. Single vessel. Configuration unknown. Mass readings are, there must be an error in the sensors. Admiral Hyejin stood from her seat. What kind of error? The mass reading indicates a vessel approximately 47 kilometers in length. That cannot be correct. The chamber erupted in confusion. Delegates demanded clarification. Sensor data appeared on the central holographic display. Multiple species confirmed the readings from their own ships, 47 kilometers. Impossible, breathed the Korthan representative. No species build ships that large. The structural integrity would fail. The power requirements would be astronomical. Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. I believe that is the appropriate force I mentioned. All eyes turned to her. You built a mobile station? Admiral Hyejin asked in disbelief. That is your contribution? A space station that can barely move. Oh, it moves, Jiwoo said quietly. The sensor data updated as the human vessel accelerated toward Terminus Prime. Its speed was not exceptional for its size, but it was far faster than any station. This was a ship, a real functioning warship of unprecedented scale. What have you done? High Mediator Thessian whispered. Overlord Krethix stared at the data, his mandibles clicking rapidly. This changes nothing. Size is not strength. My horde will crush this oversized target with concentrated fire from 1,000 ships. Perhaps, Jiwoo said. Or perhaps you should wait and see what it can do. The human vessel continued its approach. As it drew closer, visual data began feeding into the chamber's display systems. The assembled delegates fell silent as the ship came into view. It was angular and brutal in design. No smooth curves or artistic flourishes. Every surface was covered in armor plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Massive structures lined its flanks, clearly weapons of some kind. The ship moved with surprising grace, its trajectory precise and controlled. Near the viewing platform, several alien vessels appeared tiny in comparison. A Sindrel frigate that was considered large at 2 kilometers looked like a child's toy next to the human dreadnought. By the ancestors, Admiral Hyejin muttered. A communication channel opened. A human voice, calm and measured, filled the chamber. This is Captain Hansol of the Terran Federation Naval Ship Sovereign. We have arrived as requested by the Galactic Council. Transmitting approach vectors now. We are ready to assist in operations against the Valtrum Horde. Overlord Krethix found his voice. Captain, your vessel is substantial. What kind of weapon have the humans built? There was a pause. When Captain Hansol spoke again, his tone carried weight that transcended translation. This is not a weapon, Overlord. This is a statement. Earth stands with the Galactic Council, and when Earth commits to something, we commit fully. The Sovereign moved into formation with the Allied fleet, and Jiwoo watched the reactions around her. Shock, awe, fear, respect. All the emotions she had hoped to see. The galaxy had wondered why humanity sent just one ship. Now they were beginning to understand. The observation deck of the Sindrel flagship offered the best view of the assembled fleet. Admiral Hyejin stood before the transparent wall, her purple scales reflecting the light from nearby ships. Behind her, tactical officers worked at their stations, monitoring the movements of over 700 vessels and one impossible ship. The Sovereign hung in space like a knife edge. Even at rest, it looked dangerous. Admiral Hyejin had commanded fleets for 30 years. She had seen every major warship design in the galaxy, nothing compared to what the humans had built. Energy readings, she asked without turning from the window. Her tactical officer, a young Sindrel named Korthax, checked his instruments. Admiral, our sensors are having difficulty getting accurate readings. The hull seems to be absorbing our scanning beams. Absorbing them? Yes, Admiral. It is like the ship is designed to hide its true capabilities. We can measure size and mass, but internal systems remain unclear. Admiral Hyejin turned to face her crew. Weapons visible on the hull? Hundreds of weapon ports, Admiral. Possibly thousands. The main structures on the flanks appear to be mass accelerator cannons. Each one is larger than our primary weapons. There are also what appear to be missile batteries, energy weapon arrays, and point defense systems covering every angle. The Admiral felt something she had not experienced in years. Uncertainty. Her fleet was considered one of the most powerful in Syndral space. Her flagship alone carried enough firepower to level a city, and yet looking at the human dreadnought she felt small. A communication request appeared on her display. Captain Han Sol of the Sovereign wished to speak with the senior military commanders. "Put him through," she ordered. The holographic display activated, showing a human male who appeared to be in his middle years. He wore a dark uniform with minimal decoration. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. This was not a politician playing at military command. This was a warrior. Admiral Hyojin, Captain Han Sol said with a slight bow of his head. "Thank you for accepting my call. I wanted to introduce myself and coordinate with the fleet commanders." "Captain," Hyojin replied, "your vessel is remarkable. I have never seen anything like it." "The Sovereign is unique," Han Sol acknowledged. "She was designed for a specific purpose, which is to end wars quickly." The simple statement hung in the air. Admiral Hyojin studied the human captain. There was no boasting in his tone, no arrogance. "Just fact, how many crew does she carry?" Hyojin asked. 8,000 personnel. "Engineers, tactical officers, pilots for our fighter squadrons, medical staff, and support crew. 8,000. That was more than some small colonies. The Admiral tried to imagine the logistics of keeping such a vessel operational. "Captain Han Sol," another voice interrupted. Overlord Krethix had joined the communication channel. "I have been reviewing data on your ship. I remain unconvinced. In space combat, numbers matter. Concentrated fire from multiple vessels can overwhelm any defense. Your single ship, no matter how large, cannot stand against the full might of my horde." "That may be true," Han Sol replied evenly. "We will find out soon enough." The Valtrim overlord's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You are either very brave or very foolish, human. I prefer to think of myself as well prepared." Before Overlord Krethix could respond, an alert sounded across all Allied ships. A communication from the Galactic Council. High Mediator Thessian's voice came through clearly. "All fleet commanders, we have received intelligence that the Valtrim horde is fortifying the Helix system. They have moved additional ships and established siege platforms. The Council has authorized military action to retake the system and free the population. We depart in 6 hours, the channel closed." Admiral Hyojin looked at the hologram of Captain Han Sol. 6 hours, she said. "Is your vessel ready for combat?" "The Sovereign is always ready, Admiral." Something in his voice made Hyojin believe him. She ended the communication and turned back to the viewing window. The massive human ship floated silently in the darkness of space. Inside the Sovereign, Captain Han Sol walked through the main corridor toward the bridge. The ship was a city unto itself. Crew members moved with purpose, each one trained for years before being assigned to the dreadnought. The walls were lined with blast doors every 50 meters. Emergency bulkheads could seal any section in seconds. Everything was designed for survival. He entered the bridge through a reinforced doorway. The command center was circular, with stations arranged in tiers around a central holographic display. Officers sat at their posts monitoring thousands of systems. "Captain on the bridge," announced Lieutenant Tae Yang from the tactical station. The young officer stood at attention. "At ease," Han Sol said, moving to the command chair in the center of the room. "Status report." Commander Dae Hyun, the weapons officer, spoke first. "All weapon systems operational. Rail cannons charged and ready. Missile batteries loaded. Energy reserves at maximum. Engineering?" Han Sol looked at the display showing Chief Engineer Bora in the reactor room. "All 6 fusion reactors operating within normal parameters, Captain," Bora replied. Her face appeared calm, but Han Sol knew she thrived on the challenge of managing the Sovereign's power systems. "We have enough fuel for sustained combat operations for 3 months. Navigation? Course plotted to Helix system, Captain. We can jump with the fleet or arrive independently." Han Sol considered the options. Arriving with the fleet would be expected. Arriving separately would allow them to assess the tactical situation first. "We jump independently. I want to see what we are facing before we commit." "Yes, Captain." The hours passed quickly. The Sovereign completed final checks on all systems. In the hangar bays, fighter pilots prepared their craft. In the medical center, doctors prepared for potential casualties. In the armory, Marines checked their equipment. Every section of the ship had a role to play. When the time came, Captain Hansel gave the order. All hands prepare for faster-than-light jump. Destination, Helix system. The massive ship's engines built up power. Space seemed to bend around the Sovereign as it generated the field necessary for FTL travel. Then in a flash of distorted light, the ship vanished. It reappeared at the edge of the Helix system 30 seconds before the Allied fleet. Sensors immediately began scanning the area. Multiple contacts, Tae Yang reported, counting 412 Valtrim ships, 3 siege platforms in orbit around the inhabited planet. Defensive formations suggest they were expecting us. They had spies at Terminus Prime, Commander Daehyun muttered. Expected, Hansol said calmly. Overlord Krethix would want his forces warned. What about civilian populations? Reading approximately 3 million inhabitants on the planet's surface. They are being held in containment zones. Hansol felt anger rise in his chest but kept it controlled. The Valtrim horde had a reputation for cruelty. Those civilians were likely being used as hostages or worse. The Allied fleet appeared in flashes of light. 700 ships materialized in formation. Communication channels opened immediately. Admiral Haijin's voice came through. Captain Hansol, you arrived early. Wanted to get a look at the battlefield, Admiral. And what do you see? Hansol studied the tactical display. The Valtrim forces were positioned well. The siege platforms controlled orbital space around the planet. The ships were arranged to provide overlapping fields of fire. It was a strong defensive position. I see 400 ships that are about to have a very bad day, Hansol replied. For the first time since meeting the human captain, Admiral Haijin heard something in his voice that made her scales tingle. Anticipation. The battle formation took shape in the darkness of space. Admiral Haijin watched from her flagship as 700 Allied ships moved into their assigned positions. The Aquarian fleet took the left flank. The Korthan carriers positioned themselves in the center. The Syndral forces held the right, and the Sovereign hung back alone. Tactical assessment, Haijin ordered. Her officer Korthax brought up the battle display. The Valtrim forces are concentrated around the 3 siege platforms. Each platform carries enough firepower to destroy a cruiser with a single volley. The enemy ships are arranged in defensive layers. We will take heavy casualties breaking through. Haijin studied the formation. Korthax was right. This would be costly, but they had no choice. 3 million civilians waited below, suffering under Valtrim occupation. What is the human ship doing? She asked. Nothing, Admiral. The Sovereign remains at the edge of our formation. They have not moved since the fleet arrived. A communication channel opened. It was the fleet coordinator, a Thessian commander. All ships, this is Fleet Command. The attack will proceed in 3 waves. First wave will engage the outer defensive perimeter. Second wave will target the siege platforms. Third wave will provide support and eliminate remaining resistance. The human vessel will provide long-range support as needed. Long-range support. Haijin almost laughed. They were treating the massive dreadnought like an artillery platform. Keep it safe in the back while real warships did the fighting. All ships advance on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Allied fleet surged forward. Hundreds of ships accelerated toward the Valtrim defensive line. Within seconds, space filled with weapons fire. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Missiles streaked toward targets. The Valtrim forces opened fire in return. Haijin gripped the arms of her command chair as her flagship shook from impact. Shields absorbed the hit, but barely. Return fire, she ordered. The battle became chaos. Ships maneuvered and fired. Explosions bloomed where shields failed and hulls breached. Haijin watched in horror as an Aquarian destroyer vanished in a ball of flame. Then another. The Valtrim forces were stronger than intelligence had suggested. We are not breaking through, Korthax reported. Casualties mounting. 17 ships destroyed, 42 damaged. And they had barely reached the first defensive layer. On the bridge of the Sovereign, Captain Hansol watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. His crew remained calm, monitoring systems and waiting for orders. They are struggling, Commander Daehyun observed from the weapons station. Yes, Hansol agreed. The Valtrim positioned well. Give them credit for that. Lieutenant Tae Yang looked up from his station. Captain, should we move to support? Not yet. Let Fleet Command ask for help. Politics matter, even in battle. As if summoning the call, Admiral Haijin's voice came through the communication system. Her calm demeanor was gone, replaced by urgency. Sovereign, this is Admiral Haijin. We need immediate support. The siege platforms are decimating our forces. Can you provide long-range fire? Captain Hansol leaned forward in his command chair. Admiral, I can do better than long-range fire. I can end this, what do you mean? Give me permission to engage freely. There was a pause. Haijin was clearly considering the request. Finally, she replied. You have permission, Captain. All Allied forces, clear firing lanes for the Sovereign. Hansol stood. All hands, this is the Captain. We are engaging. Commander Daehyun, you have weapons free. Target priorities are the siege platforms first, then enemy capital ships. Chief Engineer Bora, transfer maximum power to weapons and shields. Aye, Captain, came the responses. Helm, take us forward. Full speed. The Sovereign moved. For the first time, the Allied forces and the Valtrum horde saw what the massive ship could really do. The dreadnought accelerated with surprising speed for its size. It moved through the battle space like a predator through smaller fish. The Valtrum forces noticed. Hundreds of ships turned their weapons toward the approaching human vessel. Enemy targeting us, Taeyang reported. Reading massive incoming fire. Point defense, engage, Hansol ordered calmly. The Sovereign's hull came alive. Thousands of small cannons activated simultaneously. Every missile, every energy beam, every projectile heading toward the ship was met with defensive fire. The point defense grid was so dense, so precisely coordinated, that nothing got through. Explosions filled space around the Sovereign, but the ship's shields never flickered. Incredible, Daehyun whispered, then caught himself. Weapons ready, Captain? Fire. The Sovereign unleashed hell. The rail cannons fired first. Massive projectiles, each one the size of a small ship, launched at incredible velocity. The first volley struck the nearest siege platform. The structure's shields held for exactly 2 seconds before collapsing. The third round punched through the armor like paper. The platform exploded in a brilliant flash. Target destroyed, Daehyun reported. Engaging second platform. The missile batteries opened up next. Thousands of missiles streaked from launch tubes covering the Sovereign's hull. They spread out in a coordinated pattern, each one guided by advanced targeting systems. Valtrum ships tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Explosions rippled through the enemy formation. The plasma lance arrays activated. Beams of superheated energy reached across space, cutting through Valtrum ships with surgical precision. A cruiser lost its engines. A destroyer was sliced in half. A carrier burned from stem to stern. Second siege platform destroyed, Daehyun called out. Moving to third target. On the Allied ships, crews watched in stunned silence. The battle that had been going poorly was suddenly turning into a massacre. The Sovereign moved through the Valtrum formation like a force of nature, destroying everything in its path. Admiral Haijin stared at her tactical display. In just 6 minutes, the human ship had destroyed over 100 Valtrum vessels and 2 siege platforms. By the ancestors, she whispered. Captain Hansol stood on his bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching the tactical display with calm focus. This was what the Sovereign was built for. Not glory, not conquest, but the efficient application of overwhelming force to protect the innocent. Third siege platform destroyed, Daehyun reported. Enemy formation breaking. They are attempting to retreat. Do not pursue beyond the orbital zone, Hansol ordered. Our mission is to free the system, not to hunt fleeing enemies. Focus fire on any ships that remain in orbit. Aye, Captain. The Valtrum forces that remained attempted to flee to the edge of the system. The Sovereign let them go. Instead, it positioned itself in orbit above the planet, a silent guardian ensuring no enemy ships could return. The entire engagement lasted 12 minutes. Admiral Haijin opened a communication channel to the Sovereign. Captain Hansol, we are in your debt. That was remarkable. Thank you, Admiral, but the Allied forces were crucial. Your attack drew the enemy's attention and allowed us to strike effectively. Both of them knew that was generous diplomacy, but Haijin appreciated it nonetheless. What now? She asked. Now we send down rescue teams to evacuate the civilians. Then we secure the system and repair our damaged ships. The Valtrum will think twice before attacking another council world. As Hansol spoke, he watched the tactical display. The battlefield was littered with debris from destroyed Valtrum ships. His own vessel remained undamaged, its shield still at full strength. Chief Engineer Bora's voice came through from the reactor room. "Captain, all systems nominal. Fuel consumption was higher than expected, but we have plenty of reserves. The ship performed perfectly." "Excellent work, Bora. Have your teams run diagnostics. I want a full status report within the hour." Hansol returned to his command chair. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had done this before. They would do it again. The Sovereign was not just a ship. It was a promise that Earth had made to the galaxy, a promise that some lines could not be crossed without consequence. On her flagship, Admiral Hai Jin turned to Korthax. "Update the combat reports. Include full sensor data on the Sovereign's performance." "Yes, Admiral." Hai Jin looked out at the massive human dreadnought hanging in orbit, its dark hull seeming to absorb the light from the nearby star. "Make sure the report emphasizes one thing," she added quietly. "What is that, Admiral?" "That we are very fortunate the humans are our allies." The conference room aboard the Sovereign was elegant in its simplicity. A long table made of dark material sat in the center, surrounded by chairs designed to accommodate different alien anatomies. Large windows offered a view of space beyond. Ambassador Jiwoo had arranged this dinner carefully. After the battle at Helix System, many species wanted to understand humanity better. Captain Hansol stood at the head of the table as guests arrived. Admiral Hyojin came first, her purple scales polished to a shine. High Counselor Thessian followed, moving slowly due to his advanced age. Several other commanders and diplomats filed in, each one representing a major galactic power. They had all come to see inside the ship that had changed everything. "Welcome aboard the Sovereign," Hansol said with a slight bow. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." "Please sit." The guests took their seats. Servers brought food and drink suited to each species' biology. Human cuisine was also available for those curious enough to try it. Dr. Yoon Seo, the ship's historian and cultural advisor, sat near Jiwoo. She was a middle-aged woman with gray streaks in her black hair and kind eyes. She had studied alien cultures for decades and knew how to bridge the gap between human and non-human thinking. "Captain Hansol," Admiral Hygiene began, "we have all read the battle reports. What we witnessed at Helix System was beyond anything we thought possible. I must ask directly, why did Earth build such a vessel?" Hansol set down his glass and met her gaze. "To prevent wars, Admiral." "Strange as that may sound, prevent wars?" Counselor Thessian leaned forward, his golden eyes gleaming with interest. "Yet you have created the most destructive weapon we have ever seen." "With respect, Counselor, the Sovereign is not a weapon. It is a tool, and like any tool, its purpose depends on how it is used." Ambassador Jiwoo spoke up. "Perhaps some context would help. Dr. Yunseo, would you share some of Earth's history with our guests?" The historian nodded and activated a small holographic display above the table. Images appeared, showing Earth in various time periods. "Humanity spent most of its history fighting itself," Yunseo began. "For thousands of years we had only one planet and many nations. We fought over resources, beliefs, territory, and pride. Our wars became more destructive as our technology advanced." The display showed images of ancient battles, then industrial warfare, then nuclear weapons. In the 20th century, we created weapons capable of destroying our entire civilization. We called them nuclear bombs. For decades, we lived under the threat of total annihilation. We call it the Cold War. Admiral Heejin looked disturbed. "You nearly destroyed yourselves?" "Several times," Yunseo confirmed. "But we learned something important. The nations with the most powerful weapons did not use them, precisely because they were so powerful. We developed a philosophy called deterrence. The idea was simple. If the cost of war is too high, no rational actor will start one." Counselor Thessian nodded slowly. "So the Sovereign is a deterrent?" "Partly," Captain Hansol said. "But it is more than that. We learned that wars are not won by the side with the most ships. They are won by the side with superior strategy, technology, and the will to use them effectively. The Sovereign represents all three." A Korthan delegate, whose crystalline body chimed softly, asked a question. "But such power could easily be misused. How do we know Earth will not use the Sovereign to dominate others?" "A fair concern," Jiwoo acknowledged. "The answer is in our history. After centuries of warfare, humanity finally united. Not because we conquered each other, but because we chose cooperation over conflict. We learned that the strongest civilizations are not those that dominate others, but those that build partnerships. Dr. Yoon Seo brought up more images on the display. When we reached the stars and met other species, we brought these lessons with us. We know the cost of war better than most. We have seen what happens when power is used without restraint. That is why Earth created the Sovereign with specific guidelines. What guidelines? Admiral Hyojin asked. Captain Hansol stood and walked to the window. The stars stretched endlessly beyond. The Sovereign operates under strict rules of engagement. We do not fire first. We do not pursue fleeing enemies beyond necessary limits. We minimize civilian casualties at all costs. We use overwhelming force to end conflicts quickly, not to prolong them. At Helix System, you could have destroyed the entire Valtrum fleet, Thessian observed. You let many escape. Yes, because our goal was to free the system, not to commit genocide. The Valtrum who fled will tell others what happened. They will think twice before attacking Council worlds again. That is more valuable than killing them all. The room fell silent as the guests considered this. A Syndrel commander spoke up. But Captain, your restraint is only possible because you have such overwhelming power. What about smaller species who cannot build ships like the Sovereign? Are we to simply hope that powerful species choose to be merciful? It was Jiwoo who answered. That is exactly why Earth shared the plans for the Sovereign with the Galactic Council's scientific division. Not the weapon systems or the most advanced technology, but the basic principles of its construction. We want other species to know that such ships are possible. We want the galaxy to understand that size and power can be used for protection, not conquest. Admiral Hyojin's eyes widened. You shared the designs? The fundamental concepts, yes. We kept the most sensitive military secrets, but we showed that a ship like this can be built. In time, other species will develop their own versions. Earth does not want to be the only power with such capability. That would make us a target and create instability. This is unprecedented, Thessian said softly. No species has ever willingly shared such strategic advantage. Because most species think in terms of advantage, Captain Hansol said, returning to the table. Earth thinks in terms of survival. We learned long ago that security comes from stable systems, not from hoarding power. A galaxy where multiple species have ships like the Sovereign is safer than one where only Earth has them. How many of these ships does Earth have? The Korthan delegate asked. Hansol smiled slightly. 7. Each one assigned to a different galactic sector. The Sovereign protects this region. Her sister ships guard other areas of Council space. 7. Admiral Hyojin repeated. And if all 7 were gathered in one place, they would represent more firepower than any force in known space, Hansol admitted. But they will never be gathered in one place. Their purpose is protection, not aggression. Spreading them across the galaxy ensures that any threat can be met quickly. Dr. Yoon Seo added more historical context. There is a saying from Earth's history, walk softly and carry a big stick. It means that true strength allows for gentleness. The Sovereign is our big stick. It allows Earth to walk softly in galactic politics because we do not need to prove ourselves. And what of your other ships? Thessian asked carefully. You mentioned the Sovereign is your diplomatic vessel. Captain Hansol's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes hardened. The Sovereign was designed for system defense and peacekeeping. Earth also has warships designed purely for offensive operations. Those vessels are more aggressive in capability and purpose. They remain in Earth's home system, and we hope they never need to leave. The implication hung in the air. The Sovereign, as devastating as it was, represented restraint. Whatever Earth kept at home was worse. Admiral Hyojin spoke quietly. You are saying that humanity has been preparing for galactic warfare since before you reached the stars. Not preparing for it, Jiwoo corrected gently. Preparing to prevent it. There is a difference. We do not want war, Admiral. We have seen too much of it. Every human alive today learns about the wars of our past. We teach our children the cost of conflict so they will work harder for peace. But you are ready if peace fails, Thessian observed. Yes, Hansol confirmed. We are ready. That readiness is what allows us to negotiate from a position of strength while genuinely seeking peaceful solutions. The dinner continued with more questions and discussions. By the end, the alien delegates had a better understanding of human philosophy. Earth was not aggressive, but neither was it weak. Humanity had transformed the harsh lessons of its violent past into a foundation for galactic stability. As the guests departed, Admiral Hyajin paused to speak with Captain Hansol privately. "I underestimated your species," she said. "I thought you were children playing at galactic politics." "I was wrong. No offense taken, Admiral. We are young to the stars, but we have been surviving as a species for a very long time." "One more question, Captain. What would it take for Earth to use its full military strength? What would make you unleash everything you have been holding back?" Hansol looked out at the stars again before answering. "Hopefully, Admiral, we will never need to find out." 3 months had passed since the battle at Helix System. The Valtrum horde continued to fight, but their aggression had become desperate. They knew the Allied forces were coming. More importantly, they knew the humans were coming. The Valtrum home system was a fortress. Overlord Krethix had pulled back his remaining forces and fortified the 3 planets his species called home. Massive defensive stations ringed each world. Thousands of automated weapons platforms filled the orbital zones. The Valtrum fleet, still numbering over 800 ships, waited in formation. It was a trap designed to make any invasion impossibly costly. The Allied fleet arrived at the edge of the system. 700 ships, many of them repaired from previous battles. Admiral He-Jin commanded from her flagship. Counselor Thessian was present to witness the final confrontation. Representatives from every council species watched on communication channels, and 3 human dreadnoughts dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Sovereign took position at the center. To its left was the Resolute, identical in design but bearing different hull markings. To its right was the Relentless. 3 massive vessels, each one capable of destroying fleets alone. Captain Hansol stood on the bridge of the Sovereign, studying the defensive network ahead. It was impressive. Overlord Krethix had learned from his defeats and prepared accordingly. "Sensor analysis," Hansol ordered. Lieutenant Taeyang worked at his station, reading approximately 800 Valtrum vessels. 3 planetary defense networks. Each network consists of 50 heavy weapon stations and over 2,000 automated platforms. They have overlapping fields of fire covering all approach vectors. Civilian population? 4 billion Valtrum citizens spread across the 3 planets. The Horde is using their own population as shields. Hansol felt disgust but kept it hidden. Using civilians as hostages was a coward's tactic. Commander Daehyun spoke from weapons. "Captain, if we approach, they will open fire immediately. The concentration of firepower is extreme. Even our shields will take significant damage." "Then we do not approach," Hansol said simply. "Not yet. Communications Officer Sung Min, open a channel to Overlord Krethix. All frequencies. I want every Valtrum in this system to hear what I'm about to say." "Channel open, Captain." Hansol took a breath, then spoke with calm authority. "Overlord Krethix, this is Captain Hansol of the Terran Federation. The Galactic Council has authorized military action to end your campaign of conquest. You have one opportunity to surrender with honor. Order your fleet to stand down, deactivate your weapons platforms, and submit to Council judgment. You have 30 minutes to comply." The response came quickly. Overlord Krethix appeared on the main display, his insectoid features twisted with fury. "You dare come to our home system and demand surrender? We are Valtrum. We do not submit. Come then, human. Bring your 3 ships against our thousands of platforms. Your arrogance will be your end." The channel closed. Admiral He-Jin's voice came through on a private channel. "Captain, he is not going to surrender. His pride will not allow it." "I know," Hansol replied, "but I had to offer. What comes next, I want every species in the galaxy to know we tried the peaceful option first." "What are you going to do?" "I am going to show Overlord Krethix why surrender was his only good choice." Hansol turned to his crew. "Send tactical data to the Resolute and Relentless. We are moving to Formation Pattern Delta. Chief Engineer Bora, transfer maximum power to weapons. Commander Daehyun, prepare precision strikes. I want surgical targeting. Command centers, weapons platforms, military installations only. 0 civilian casualties." "That will require perfect accuracy," Daehyun said. "At these ranges through that much defensive fire." "I know." "Can you do it?" Daehyun smiled grimly. "Yes, Captain. We can do it." The 3 human dreadnoughts moved into position, forming a triangle in space. The formation was precise, calculated. Each ship had overlapping fields of fire supporting the others. "All ships ready, Captain," Taeyang reported. "Begin operation," Hansol ordered. "Show them what restraint with overwhelming power looks like." The Sovereign fired first. but not the massive weapons that had devastated the Valtrum fleet at Helix. Instead, smaller precision weapons activated. Guided missiles streaked across space, each one programmed with exact coordinates. They weaved through the defensive fire with impossible agility, adjusting their courses in real time. The first wave struck 6 command centers simultaneously. The structures exploded, their communication arrays destroyed. Suddenly, large portions of the defensive network lost coordination. The second wave targeted weapons platforms. Not all of them, just the ones controlling key sectors. Explosions bloomed across the orbital zone as platforms went dark. The Resolute and Relentless fired next, their targeting equally precise. More command centers, more weapons platforms. The Valtrum fleet tried to respond, but they had lost their command structure. Individual ships fired, but without coordination. On the bridge of the Sovereign, Dae-Hyun called out targets with mechanical efficiency. Platform Cluster 7 destroyed. Command Station 12 disabled. Military hangar complex on Planet 2 neutralized. Casualties? Han Sol asked. Monitoring planetary sensors. No civilian casualties detected. Strikes are hitting with accuracy within 2 meters of planned impact points. It was a surgical dismantling of military infrastructure. The 3 human ships moved through the system, not as conquerors, but as precision instruments. Every shot was calculated. Every target was military. The defensive network that had taken months to build was being systematically disabled in minutes. Overlord Krethix watched from his command ship, mandibles clicking in panic. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. The humans were showing that they could destroy his military capability without touching a single civilian. All ships, concentrate fire on the center vessel, he ordered desperately. The Valtrum fleet responded, turning their weapons toward the Sovereign. Thousands of energy beams and missiles converged on the human dreadnought. The point defense grid activated. Every incoming projectile was intercepted. The energy weapons splashed harmlessly against shields that had been designed to withstand far worse. The Sovereign did not even slow its targeting. Enemy fire ineffective, Tae-Yang reported. Continue operations, Han Sol said calmly. Minutes passed. The Valtrum defensive network continued to crumble. Weapons platforms went dark. Command centers burned. Military installations were reduced to smoking ruins. And not a single civilian building was touched. Ambassador Ji-Woo watched from the Galactic Council chamber on Terminus Prime, where the entire operation was being broadcast. Around her, representatives from dozens of species watched in silence. "Do you see?" she said quietly to those nearby. "This is what Earth brings to the galaxy. Not destruction for its own sake, but the ability to end conflicts without massacring innocents." On screen, the 3 human dreadnoughts continued their precise assault. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like watching a surgeon at work, removing only the disease while leaving healthy tissue untouched. Overlord Krethix finally understood. He could not win. More importantly, the humans were showing mercy he would never have shown to them. They could destroy his entire civilization if they chose. Instead, they were giving him a chance to save his people. He opened a communication channel, his voice defeated. "Ceasefire. I surrender." The Valtrum horde surrenders. Captain Han Sol held up one hand and the 3 dreadnoughts stopped firing immediately. The sudden silence was deafening. "Overlord Krethix," Han Sol said, "order your ships to power down weapons and lower shields. Order the planetary defense networks to deactivate. Council peacekeeping forces will arrive to oversee the transition. And what will happen to my people?" Krethix asked, fear evident in his voice. "They will be safe. The Galactic Council will determine appropriate consequences for the Horde's leadership. But your civilian population will not be harmed. That is the Council's way. That is Earth's way." The Valtrum fleet complied. Ships went dark, shields dropped. The defensive network powered down. It was over. Admiral Hyojin opened a private channel to Captain Han Sol. "Remarkable, Captain. You destroyed their military capability without killing their civilization. That was always the goal, Admiral. War should be about achieving objectives, not revenge." Ambassador Ji-Woo addressed the Galactic Council from Terminus Prime. "Let this be a lesson to all species. Earth joined the Council not to dominate but to protect. We sent 1 ship to your aid because 1 ship was all that was needed. We could have sent more. We could have been more destructive. But our strength allows us to be merciful." Councillor Thessian spoke, his ancient voice carrying weight. "Today humanity has shown us a new paradigm. Power without restraint is tyranny. But power with restraint is leadership. Earth has earned not just our respect but our trust. Aboard the Sovereign, Captain Hansol sat in his command chair and watched the defeated Valtrum fleet. His crew worked quietly around him, already beginning post-operation procedures. "Captain," Lieutenant Tai Yang said softly, "the Allied fleet is requesting permission to enter the system and begin peacekeeping operations." "Granted. Send them our censored data on remaining military installations. The Council forces can handle the occupation and reconstruction. What about us, sir?"